Timo. Hey,
Nice to
man.
meet
It's
you.
good seeing you again.
I spoke with you before. That's why I was like, man, Neglia, I remember. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we spoke for Shadow Strays. I think it was last
Yes,
year.
exactly. Last year for Toronto, I think, right?
Yeah,
Something
man.
like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, now we're back here with Nobody 2, which you directed. This is your first project, I believe, where you're not credited as writer or producer. How did you come on board to this sequel?
Uh, yeah, exactly. You're right. But here's the thing. I have no problem at all with not being the writer, just because writing is the hardest thing to do. So me just looking at script and like, yeah, all right, I'll do that. Like, easy.
Yes.
Not easy, but like, yeah. I mean, like, I was in the middle of doing posts for the Shadow Strays. And while I was doing the post, like suddenly my agent called me and like, hey, Timo, like there's this project needing a director. I don't know if you're gonna like it because it's about it's about family, it's about like having holidays and all that stuff. I don't know if that's too bright and colorful for you. I was like, send me the script, and I was like, it's Nobody 2. Are you talking about Ilya Naishuler's Nobody? Like, seriously? Yeah. I'm like, freaking hell, like I am such a huge fan of the first film. Can I read the script first? And then when I read it, it's actually the kind of change that I need, because I did Shadow Strays, and Shadow Strays is a pretty dark and gloomy sort of film, right? Like it's a film that will leave you with a certain sadness. While I was reading this one, all I remember is like flipping straight to the last couple of pages, and I just have this image of Hutch Mansell kind of like sitting there with his family, and there's something really warming about that, something that I felt like, you know what, as a filmmaker, I do want to sometimes leave the world in a hopeful note, So I said yes. Like, I did the pitching with Universal, I did the pitch with Bob Odenkirk, and the rest is history.
Yeah. I actually spoke with Ilya for his latest film that just came out, and he told me that he feels the Nobody films, if there is going to be more in the future, he believes that it's the kind of franchise where different directors can come in per film, put a spin on it, make it their own, and play in the sandbox. Did you feel this way as well when you came in?
I'm a much more selfish filmmaker than Ilya. I think if I'm not doing Nobody 3, the only person to do it is Ilya Naishuler. I think he sets the tone for the first film, and he sets the tone for the second film as well. Like he left his mark in Hutch Mansell as a character, and I think I would say ideally it should be Ilya who's doing the Nobody 3, which I hope will go back to its darker roots. That'll be something. Yeah.
Well, the duck boat scene in particular, it reminded me so much of the bus scene in the first film, in that it's this close quarters, Hutch against many guys fight sequence. Can you tell me the challenges that one experiences when you're trying to choreograph a sequence like that in such a close, tight space, and of course on water too?
Yeah, thank you. I think, weirdly enough, like when you read the script, you straight away know, like, okay, this is the equivalent of the bus fight in the first film. But I think obviously one of the highlights of the first film is the bus fight, right? And it's already done so masterfully. I don't want to have to compare to that, just because I feel that scene is so iconic. And the beauty with shooting in waters, which is also the thing that kind of killed us, like almost killed us. Not in a sense like it's dangerous, but like it's more the technical difficulty of doing it. When I read it, I was thinking like, you know what? Let's do it in a green screen, easy. All right, let's put it in a green screen. Let's do the hydraulic thing where, well, we are fighting surrounded by green screen while crew are like pumping it so it looks like the boat is rocking back and forth. But like as we are talking along, like, and Bob, the trooper that he is, he said, Timo, like, honestly, I wouldn't be happy if I have to do this in green screen, just because I wouldn't feel like it's real. It's not gritty. It's not messy. And I was asking Bob, like, so how do you want to do it then? Can we go and scout the waters? And so literally, like, 2 weeks later, I'm in Winnipeg, like finding the best river for us to shoot, you know, and just to be sitting there on a duck boat in Winnipeg sun, like it's like literally hot at the time. I remember, like it's hot as hell, and literally having two actors playing the old lovely old couple in the front, you know, like, and then we have the boat captain as Bob is like, you know, like fighting and like kind of like kicking people out of the boat and all this stuff. That's hard, man. Like I'm a guy who already went through several sort of like action set pieces, but like to fight in a real boat while the boat is like moving back and forth, and then the camera have to move like left to right and then to the top and all that stuff. It's not a walk in the park. I remember like every time we are finished shooting that, like I will go back to my apartment in Winnipeg, taking a shower, and I remember like, hey, I still feel like I'm in the boat, like because like obviously we all get like the sea legs going on,
Right.
but like our anchor is always Bob. If we see Bob can do it, Bob wanting to go multiple takes for it, like we have to pretend that we are tough enough for to keep up with Bob, you know.
Yeah.
So that was an experience, so definitely.
And I'm really curious when it comes to Bob. This is a guy who is willing to do so much, but I have to imagine there comes a point where either you, the safety guy, the stunt coordinator, maybe all of you together say, Bob, no. Like we have to do this a different way because we can't risk production shutting down in case if something happens to you. What is that conversation just like in terms of different department heads, yourself, Bob, coming together to determine what Bob does versus what he doesn't do?
Well, definitely Bob definitely would prefer to do a lot of his own stunts, but like, at the same time, he's also a very wise person when it comes to the logistics of the production. So I don't feel like he's the kind of like uber masculine sort of guy who says like, nah, I gotta do this by myself, you know. He knows when it's time for his character, or for at least for himself to kind of pull back a bit, you know. Honestly, like there are certain things where I'm surprised that Bob did it for himself, you know, like literally, let's say, for example, doing 6 beats at the same time, you know, like where he's going to be punching, kicking, and then the head butting, and then he's going to be grabbing the duck head and, you know, all that stuff. Bob is really good at memorizing all that stuff. He knows the choreography by heart, you know. But at the same time, I think along with, you know, like him being a very experienced man, like, and he has enough mileage with his, you know, with his films. Like he knows, like, Timo, like, you want me to do this by myself? And I said, like, you know what? There's no reason. Why should we do it? Like, let's have your stunt double. And he's like, all right. So it's really the best of both worlds, because like he's capable, but his ego doesn't let him to take over, like, nah, I gotta do this by myself, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Brilliant guy to work with. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely. And you could tell that he is eager, he is willing. It's part of the fun of watching these movies, is seeing this is not Tom Cruise, this is not Keanu Reeves, this is Bob Odenkirk, you know, Mr. Show, doing these things.
Mr. Show, exactly.
Exactly. And Better Call Saul.
Yes, exactly. And again, like to kind of like drive that point further, the thing is, if you have all those ego, like, then you wouldn't have like the set piece, like him losing the pinky. Then you wouldn't have what happens in the end, you know, like,
right.
But like he knows when the story tells you that, all right, this is not about Bob Odenkirk anymore. This is about Hutch Mansell finding the heart of the theme of the film, which is the need for his character to acknowledge that without his family, he's not the full man that he is. Mm-hmm. And he realized that, and he's like, all right, the story said so, like, so let's do that. Let's do that little twist in the end, you know, like, so, hey man, I can't complain, you know. He's an angel.
I'm sure. I want to ask you a practical question, because this is something that's been on my mind so much as of late. CGI fire versus real fire. Mm-hmm. I think that there is a time and a place for both. I do get a sense that most action movies are starting to nowadays like move away from using real fire on set. I think we can all agree it like looks better in camera. Everything looks better in camera,
Yes,
but there
of
is
course.
obviously a safety component to that as well. But I would also think that it's more expensive to do CGI fire. Can you just take me through the thought process of when to and when not to?
Okay, so CGI fire is inevitable, right? Like I think as somebody who I don't think I have a film yet where a character doesn't get burned. You know, I think for every film of mine, I think at some variation or another, like we always have some stunt guy getting burned or in flames and all that whatnot.
Yeah.
Having said that, I always try to maintain, you know, like here's the thing, like I was there exactly when we kind of like ceased to fully rely on practical fire and start to sort of incorporate both. And I think that's the best of both worlds, you know. I think when it comes to using CGI fire, it works. It works okay, but like you would never be able to sell it as real fire. So the smart way to go around it is still applying like some real fire, just for it to support like the CGI fire around it, you know.
Yeah.
And honestly, here's the thing. Uh, I think I kind of got a pretty good deal out of this because I would say like, hey guys, like if you want to do this, I would want to have real squibs, okay? And for the most of it, I still get what I want there. But at the same time, I do understand, look, we only have so many days to shoot, and there's only one Bob Odenkirk, there's only one Sharon Stone. So let's not kind of become, you know, let's not become a filmmaker who's like having to go method and everything, you know. And I think part of you kind of being a more experienced filmmaker, like you just accept that. You just kind of like see how can we sort of like make the better version of that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, trust me, man. Like maybe one day I'll go back to my indie route and really like lit a guy on with gasoline and all this stuff. But like, you know, for now, like I follow the rules and we get to see another day, you know.
Sure.
So yeah.
And speaking of which, you know, 87 North Productions have made quite a name for themselves as one of the premier American independent action film companies. What was the experience like working with them? And, you know, what's like their style compared to others that you've experienced?
Okay, I think honestly, I think for my first Hollywood film, I couldn't work with better people, you know, just
Yeah.
because, you know, like I'm working with David Leitch and Kelly McCormick, they are great producers. You know, like Kelly, I always know her way around the logistics of like what's sensible and what's not. And David is usually there in the background, but like just because he's chilling there in the background doesn't mean he's staying loud, you know, because the thing is like when I'm stuck with something else, with something, which I found that often, you know, like because this is my first Hollywood film, so I don't know how people necessarily work or whether we have the same method. David will come to the front and like, hey, Timo, I noticed like you are missing this. Like, what about if we do that instead? So it's actually great because David is not a dictator, but he'll definitely let you know when you could be missing something or like something could be improved by doing so. For example, I think one of the clear example would be the water slide, you know?
Yeah.
Initially, I was content with like the explosion and then you know, like we have the gag with Christopher Lloyd with the Gatling gun and all that stuff. And which is weird because like even when the water slide is there, like I never really thought about like, I don't think we're gonna have time to do all this stuff. And then David's like, hey, what if we do it this way? What if we kind of have a more lo-fi approach to it, which is literally just attaching the camera in front of Bob as he's sliding down and all that stuff. So he's giving me solutions to make things possible, you know, and I love that about him. A very generous filmmaker, I would say.
Sure. And as we wrap up here, I'm going to ask you a simple yes or no question.
Okay, cool.
It's not about Nobody 3. Are we any closer to getting Shadow Strays 2?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Okay. I figured Nobody 3 is coming, so that's why I wanted to pivot
You never
because
know, but like I definitely no, but Shadow Strays 2 is definitely a thing that is so close to my heart. Like, and I think people are gonna love what the film is all about, you know, because I don't think people ever attempt this sort of storytelling in an action film before. But like I would say, Godfather 2 is definitely a huge part of my influence to write that particular story.
I love that. Well, whatever you do, Timo, whether it's back home, overseas, here, Hollywood or not, doesn't matter. I am on board for everything you do, sir.
Hey,
Thank you so
man.
much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very encouraging. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.